Major funding for this program is made possible by grants from Bank of America, Merrill Lynch, and Perfect Building Maintenance, KILROY Architectural Windows, Inc., New York's Window Company, New York Community Bank, Capital One Bank, Greenberg Traurig, LLP. Additional funding is provided by grants from Akron Gold Brothers, LLC, Briarwood Organization, Beechwood Organization, C.B. Richard Ellis, Cushman & Wakefield, Dime Savings Bank of Williamsburg, Hal Fettner, Durst Fettner Residential, First American Title Insurance Company of New York, Friedman, LLP, Gemini Real Estate Advisors, LLC, Jack Jaffa and Associates Real Estate Consultants, James D. Kuhn Real Estate Institute at Syracuse University, Madison Realty Capital, Massey Knackle Realty Services, Meridian Capital Group, M&T Bank, Muss Development, LLC, Des Moines Group, Newmark Knight Frank, Orphanides and Associates, SJP Properties, Sterling and Sterling, Stonehenge Partners, Urban American, W Financial Mortgage Fund, the Wickoff Group.
Hello, my name is Michael Stoller. Where are we going to be in 2010? What does the world look like? Where are we going to be on rentals, condominium sales, office market? Where is this going to be? So I've assembled today this group of women to provide me and my audience some insight on the state of the market in 2010. My guests today include Amy Rose, co-president of Rose Associates, Adrian Albert, CEO of the Marketing Director, Cynthia Foster, executive managing director of Cushman & Wakefield, and last but not least, the person who I consider helping me produce today's show, my executive producer, Leslie Harwood. Leslie Harwood, managing director of Newmark Knight Frank. So Leslie, since you and I spoke about this a couple weeks ago, you know, we had to do a little preparation, not really with you and all your friends. So where do you see the office market? Because you're heavily involved in the office market. Where are tenants? What do they want to do next year?
Well, Michael, where we see it right now is that the market right now is flat. And tenants are really looking forward to taking advantage of the market as they see it today. I think financially right now everyone's looking at the bottom line and looking to save as much money as they possibly can. And if they have the opportunity to make a deal right now, they will.
So, and where do you see it? Because Cynthia, you're very involved with the office. That's your specialty. Where do you see the office market?
Oh, I mean, to echo what Leslie says, I would say cash is king. The companies really want to conserve their cash positions before they can see what's going on. They're very conscious of not necessarily the lowest rent, but making sure that their position, whether it's move or stay, conserves their cash position at all costs.
Now, you know, when you're talking cash, I think another interesting point on cash is king is that tenants today are probably taking, are really taking advantage and want to evaluate the landlords they're dealing with, because they want to make sure that the landlord is strong.
It's a very
enough,
big part of it.
because you know you're worried that, you know, many people, a great story, a very prominent individual who is the chairman of the board of a major financial service firm, retired from his company, and he asked me for advice on leasing space, and he found space. And he had a good broker, and the broker was angry. He only looked at 27 different spaces. And this was a year and a half ago, so now he's a little upset. And he had a lease, and it was in a MacLeod building. And it was at 1330 or Avenue of the Americas. And he called me up, and he said, I met with Harry. They're going to do this. I said, Mr. Rex, you decide. They're good people. They may do it, but they may not have the building.
Right.
And I was right, and he subsequently he decided not to go in there, and he went, like we were talking about before, 7-Eleven or 21, he went there
7,
because
12.
he wanted to find a landlord who was strong enough. And I think that's the situation that happens on your retail stores today.
Definitely on our retail, but also on the residential front, we're seeing for the first time, it's not so much as we've all said about the rent. Obviously they want the best value they can find, but clearly people want to know who is the owner of the building, who is for the first time. We're getting a lot of questions, obviously the managing agent, but who's managing it? Can they pay their bills? Will they be here? And are these buildings financially sound, even from the rental tenants?
You know, I think that comment is also, you know, because of, you know, Adrienne, you know, you're the queen of the, you know, of the residential condominium sales in New York and New Jersey for the past 30 years. I mean, you were 12 at that time, but you know, but I'd say today, when somebody is looking, you know, you have about 6 buildings, 7 buildings that we were talking about prior to the show. I think when somebody's there, I mean, if it was a Rose building, there's no question they're happy.
No question.
But there are a lot of, you know, new developers or semi-weak developer, and you have to hope that it's the right developer. I mean, what's happening on that?
It's extremely important for anyone who's in the market today, whether it be for rent or for sale, to understand who they're buying from or who they're leasing from. Because as you can see in other markets in the U.S., if a potential purchaser buys into a property that is not properly maintained, their value plummets. Plus, they may be responsible for carrying charges that they didn't think they would be responsible for in the case of ownership. And of course, in the case of rental, as Amy I'm sure will tell you, it's extremely important because you want those services to remain constant. You don't want to make an arrangement where you're paying X amount of rent in return for space and services and find that the services have disappeared. So it's very, very important today for the consumer.
I think my audience would really like to get a perspective on what, and I'll broach it on all 4 of you. Okay, how much have office rents, because I'm looking at the 2 of you on this basic question, how much have office rents dropped to? I mean, because I believe, you know, I think the 2 of you said to me prior to the show, you think we're at the bottom.
Right. Well, I think we're down all of our, when we look at all of our markets across the city, I think it's an average of about 40%, and that's where we're looking at.
I mean, we're really
at the moment. But
right, I think one of the big distinctions is probably the face rents are down 40%.
Exactly.
But when you factor in the concessions, and we were talking about the concessions on the residential and the retail side as well, but when you factor in the concessions, they're actually down more because landlords are offering much longer. I mean, we're seeing free rent of almost a year in some situations.
Fortunately, not in the residential.
Not in the residential
Yes.
side, but,
Thank goodness.
but when you start to factor that in to get in a net effective basis, you're seeing slippage beyond the 40%.
right,
Wow.
and we're not only free rent,
60%.
but we're talking about work as well. So
Sure, and
landlords
then
are giving
overage,
work.
HVAC, because a lot of these landlords, they don't want to they don't want to show to their investors, or they don't want to show to their lenders that their face rents have fallen so dramatically. So there's a way to kind of prop up the face rent effectively through the concessions.
So do you believe, the 2 of you, have we reached the bottom? I mean, or can rents, office rents, even go down further in 2010?
No, I think we've reached the bottom right now, and I also think as it pertains to the concession package, we're seeing it tighten up right now, less free rent and less work. Tenants are actually taking space that already has an infrastructure and getting work on top of that. We see landlords starting to switch their position and really get a little stronger in that arena.
We really believe we've reached the bottom, and a couple of factors are driving that. Overall, these supports for our financial service companies have really helped New York lead the recovery through the country. So that's been one big factor. And so our financial service companies are the basis of our growth in New York, and they're doing better. They got a lot of help from Washington, and they're doing a lot better. The second, driver here is there hasn't been a lot of increase in supply. It's almost de minimis in terms of the increase in supply. And the third is you've got a really healthy base of tenants, which keeps this engine going.
You know, that brings up an interesting thing. Prior to the show, you were saying that people want the new product. They want new office, they want new apartments, they want new condominiums. That relates, there's not that much new product in the office market. There's a lot of new residential in certain markets of the city. But let's bring up, what are the options? I mean, because I don't consider not Seven World Trade Center, Worldwide Towers, new product.
No.
I mean, that's a 25-year-old product, you know, with tough floor plates and something like that, you know. Or you can go to 3 Park Avenue and then you have to live with a landlord. So, you know, it's a question of what the circumstances.
Right.
But people like new, so where do they go? You can go to 125 Park.
Well,
You can go.
I mean, we're representing and we used to think of 6th Avenue as having the new product, you know, the great progressively, they could put the trading floors in there, they had the nice big floor plates, and suddenly that doesn't look so new anymore. You go over to the far west side and you look at some of the product available and the ceiling heights and the windows and the light and superimpose sustainability on that, and, you know, these absolutely gold certified buildings. I mean, it's amazing how it's evolved in terms of tenants.
You bring up gold certified. What do you see in the residential? Are people that acumen for the environmental residential? Is it?
I think for an office tenant, it seems that that's definitely what you want to have. It's very expensive to build green housing, and because of the nature of how office construction is, it's cheaper to build that way. But people are going there. We have buildings that now anything that's slated for new development absolutely has to be silver or gold certified.
Isn't that
no
right?
question. Mm-hmm.
Now your marketing, the Vision Air is a green
Platinum
building.
certified.
Platinum certified?
Yes, it is the highest possible certification level. And it's been interesting to watch how the idea of living green has grown over the last 2 or 3 years. Mm-hmm. We're about to open another Platinum Gold certified residential building as well. I don't think it's yet a driver for where people choose to live, but I think it is becoming a more important factor. I think people are beginning to understand that there's a value to having an ecologically friendly environment.
Yeah,
Right.
I think it makes them feel good.
It's not enough to make them purchase a home, but it certainly is a growing factor, a more important factor.
And for a tenant who's going to sign a 10-year lease, I mean, we just went through this with, you know, Cushman & Wakefield's headquarters. We said, okay, what are we going to look like in 5 years when we didn't start that movement forward? You know, we're on the cutting edge of these kinds of things for our clients. And so I think tenants are increasingly saying, where do we want to be in 5 years and still have another 5 years in this space? We need to look ahead, look at the configurations.
Right, one of the things we were talking about earlier as well is the cultural change in how companies look at themselves culturally. And while that has a very big impact on how they want to, on what they want to look like in 10 years and how they relook at their company, I think financially is really, the finances are really driving the market. And I think tenants really want to take advantage of the market where we are today. And really, it's at the end of the day, it's the bottom line.
So let's get to that, tenants taking advantage on rents. How much are residential rents down?
In the product that we have, which is luxury Manhattan residential rental, from the high, we're probably down 10 to 12%. And then you come to the issue that we've been discussing, the concessions, which are, some people are paying brokers 2 months, some are paying 3 months, and so net effective, you're down 20 to 25%.
But in a building like a Rose building, you're probably not giving more than a month, because in today's market, I mean, maybe earlier last year, in 2009, you might have had to give away 2 months of free rent.
We're definitely flat on our rents. Remember, we have to compete with newer product that people are going to, and with the internet, anybody can search anything, and they know what somebody down the street is getting, and so while we may not have to give as much on, let's say, the brokers, then you have to give it something on the rent. And, you know, our goal, we have to keep the building rented.
Give them the gym,
But-
you know, give them
Michael,
the coffee in the morning.
You make an important point. We we track the for sale market. We also track the for rent market. And just to support what Amy is saying, we did see concessions of 3 months, of 2 months, but that has been tightening.
Yeah.
And except for certain pockets or certain buildings which may have more vacant than other buildings, we're seeing an average now of just over 1 month's rent as a concession throughout the city. After all, if you look at the inventory of rental, pardon?
Yeah, go ahead.
Of rental available, it's gone down 20% from September to October. October has 20% less rental inventory
With
in
the
Manhattan than
exception
September.
that in 2010, the far west side is going to, it's like nightmare city with the amount of new units
Okay,
going
well,
on. Everybody
that's-
thought it was the High Line. I don't
Right.
call that the High Line. I call it the west side.
Right,
The
okay.
High Line is
Okay,
37th Street.
but there was also
Gets a
the
little High Line to me.
But there was also the fear of shadow inventory. How much of the condominiums that were not sold would become, in fact, part of the rental pool?
We have the same
And-
phenomenon on the office
And
side.
we really didn't see a huge transfer of condominium product to rental product. At least we haven't seen it so far, and I don't think we're going to see it.
No, I would agree.
So that whole fear of shadow inventory, of the rental market being completely inundated with additional product, really hasn't happened.
You know, I've done a number of shows recently, and I've had these individuals who owners, you know, who own a lot of stabilized apartments, you know, not luxury, but all types, and they said, look, people want to be in New York City. We said that before. People are coming here. This is the financial center of the world. People don't say, you know, when they graduate University of Michigan or anywhere, no, I don't want to go to Iowa. I want to go to New York City. You know, they'll double up and up an apartment. They'll be here, and, you know, they're going to come to New York City. And the apartments will be taken to a certain degree. The real question is, you know, certain places are more desirable. For example, the Upper East Side, I did a show 2 weeks ago, and they said to me, my apartments on the Upper East Side, House Fedna said, are the hardest ones for me to rent. He said people don't want to, young people don't want to be in the Upper East Side. You know?
Well, you know, I think everybody finds the product that they want, and I think what has happened is since rents have come down is that people are starting to come back into Manhattan and take advantage. I think for some of the boroughs, that's where you may have a problem. They're coming down to where it's cheaper. They can go live in the financial district. They can live on the Upper West Side. There's product, and we don't, as Adrian said, there's only a couple thousand units that are for the rest of this year, and you lower your rent. If you're a new development, you have to get people in there, and so their concessions will be greater than somebody else.
I mean, I think what's happening on the West Side is there's going to be a lot of new buildings. I mean, you have Larry Silverstein, Silver Towers, you have the Alganians with their building, you have Jeff Levine, you have Peter Fine, you have all of these buildings over there, and, you know, unfortunately, they all look alike. You know, there's nothing unique about these buildings. You know, the one bedrooms, because they were built as rentals. They weren't built as condos, and condos are different. And I think that's part of the big point also. Why the banks have come to realize that you can't rent a condo that well, because
finishes are different.
the
They're
finishes,
fussy. They're
the
beautiful. They
finishes
can't handle the
plus
turns.
a one-bedroom apartment could be 550 square feet. A one-bedroom condo is 800 square feet. So when you're getting X dollars per square foot, you can't get this type of money. How much have apartments dropped in price in New York and New Jersey? Because
For sale condominiums?
For sale condominiums.
I think that it's fair to say that there's been approximately 10% negotiation in the market today. It was as high as 20%. You might be able to get a great deal if you were a terrific negotiator, between 20 and 25%. But that too has changed. The market has firmed.
What's the, if someone came to me, because people send me emails and other things, and they said, I want to buy an apartment in New York City, and I'm not, you know, because at one time they said, I want to be here, you know, but they go all around. Where is the Best Buy? Is it in Lower Manhattan, or is it in New Jersey, or is it in Brooklyn? I mean, you have a property that you're selling.
The reason I'm smiling is because people always ask me, where is the Best Buy? Where should I live? What?
We get that
You're gonna
question in
live in
commercial
it.
real
If
estate
you're
as well.
going to live in it,
Right.
you live where you like to live, and 5 years from now, everything will be higher. Everything will do well, and you too will do well. To say to someone, oh, you should live here for 5 years, even though you hate this neighborhood, it doesn't work. I think there are good buys to be had all over Manhattan. You really have to ask someone, what are they looking for and what is it they want to achieve? There are some areas that have more product available than others. For example, downtown has been hit so hard with our job loss that there's more product available downtown than in some other neighborhoods. So if you like living downtown, there are great deals to be had there.
I'm just listening to this thinking of the first time I got an apartment in New York. I mean, this is kind of normalization.
Yes.
I mean, you know, it's like you showed up with the suitcase and the agreement. The first thing you saw at 8 in the morning, you had to sign, and you know, it was like a ridiculous price.
But that's not the situation today.
No,
Today,
but the situation today is so much better than most of the major markets in the country. They've never even seen this good a situation.
Well, that's because we're New York.
But I also want to say,
wants to be
I
here.
think it's going back to the market in general. I think for residential and commercial, it's opportunity driven. There's opportunities everywhere in the city, wherever you want to be, wherever different buildings, there are different opportunities, and it depends on not only your residential needs, but in your commercial needs, how you're going to look at your company or your lifestyle in a few years out. And the market is really driven in both markets, I think, by that.
Your colleague in crime last week, Jim Kuhn, said to me, you know, don't be so myopic, Mike Stoller. So I want to leave the borough of Manhattan. I'd like to say, what's your thoughts about, and this relates both residential and it relates commercial, to, you know, downtown Brooklyn and to Long Island City, you know, because it's both the situation. I mean, MetLife had made a major commitment to Long Island City, and then the chairman of the board of MetLife said, forget that, I don't want to be in Long Island City. I mean, Vornado bought a piece of property on 125th Street. They were ready to build, and then the tenant said, you know, we don't want to be there. I mean, so there's a different market. So what do you think about
For that price.
Right, for the outer boroughs, I mean, the other boroughs?
Well, Brooklyn is clearly established, and there are a couple of thousand, 2,000, I think, to 3,000 units for rental coming on in this year alone. And it's an established borough. It's a city on the scale in this country. It's massive with millions and millions of people. So it's a market within itself, and it's strong. It too has come down. You know, the rents are down. There are concessions. People are living there. Long Island City is a little more challenged, and those people are coming in now that the rents are cheaper. They're not necessarily staying out there, but that will get also better. The infrastructure is coming
I mean,
still.
we're not that young, but the go-go, the Generation X really was Williamsburg.
It's very hot, very hot.
It's
Williamsburg
still
is an
very hot.
extension of Manhattan. When you talk to people, that's where they want to be. They really, if they hop on the subway, they're back in Manhattan. It's really
And it's a
part of
wonderful place
Manhattan.
to live. You're living in a suburb part of Manhattan. It's a beautiful place to live.
Yeah, they don't view it as, they're very hip. You have to be in Williamsburg and you come right back into Manhattan. They don't view it as, you know, being so far away.
And what about Jersey City? I mean, many companies have relocated their offices because of great incentives in New Jersey. What's your thoughts about Jersey City? I know
Well, I'm born and raised in Jersey City, so.
you little setup over
I
there.
love Jersey City. Well, you know, we have a property in Jersey City that we've put on hold until the market turns. But Jersey City is, Adrian and I have had many conversations about Jersey City. It's a strong market. It's a good market. It's also a subway right away. Perhaps not as cool and hip as Brooklyn, but it's going to find its place.
But Jersey City is a solid market today,
is.
and it really did an about-face after 2001. And it has become a destination in and of itself. It's no longer the Hoboken wannabe. It really is a destination, a residential destination today.
A little different on the office side.
I don't know anything about office. I have to
in the office market
defer
in
to
Jersey
you.
City, you don't think is that strong?
Well, there are select companies that would seek that as an alternative to Manhattan, and not because of price, because they want to be there. Perhaps they have employees in greater New Jersey, but in general, it's been a back office alternative to lower Manhattan. And with the tax incentives and other associated costs, it turns out to be cheaper than operating and paying rent in lower Manhattan. But it hasn't been an alternative to a headquarters location.
But for a residential location, there's light rail, there's the path, there's the ferry.
And beautiful views.
Great
What
quality
about
of life.
the Galleria, Westchester, White Plains? Any thoughts about that?
What a
don't know that market,
transformation.
so I
What
can't
an
really talk to
incredible
that.
transformation.
Beautiful.
White
I mean,
Plains.
White Plains was a place where, there was no place to shop, there was no place to live. I mean, they had the one old Sears store. I mean, it's been a fantastic renovation, great mass transit. Westchester County got a very, very, very high vacancy rate. It has not gotten, there used to be a rule of thumb, $30 differential in net rents meant Manhattan companies would move to the suburbs. And in this last cycle, we saw $60 to $80 differentials, and people still weren't going to the suburbs. It's really been a fundamental switch. People no longer see it. First of all, everybody's gotten more sophisticated. These companies see that rent is just a minuscule part of their costs.
And I think that's a big part of commercial real estate as well.
Yes, that's right.
It's the major. It's the major factor.
Yeah, the employee costs are relatively the same. The taxes are relatively the same. So when it's just a real estate differential, it's not that significant.
So with like a minute left to the show, how do we, if you had to give a quick thumbnail of where you see 2010, where do you see it?
As I said to you earlier, I think we're cautiously optimistic, and we see opportunity. And we're an 87-year-old company, and so we have lived through many cycles, and we are very positive on New York.
I'm perhaps a tiny bit more optimistic than cautiously optimistic. I am optimistic about 2010. There are two unknowns that help to cloud that picture for me. One is what's going to happen in the commercial mortgage market. And the second thing is, how will we have jobs return to Manhattan? However, assuming that neither of those two areas change, I believe that the residential market certainly is improving and will continue to improve.
We're optimistic for 2010. We believe the job growth is going to continue, which is really the key to office employment.
Leslie?
We're also very optimistic for 2010, and we're looking forward to many deals getting completed next year that I think that no one's really expecting, and I think it's going to be a wonderful year for the real estate industry.
I'd like to thank Amy Rose, Adrian Albert, Cynthia Foster, and Leslie Harwood for being here. See you next week.
Major funding for this program is made possible by grants from Bank of America, Merrill Lynch, and Perfect Building Maintenance, KILROY Architectural Windows, Inc., New York's Window Company, New York Community Bank, Capital One Bank, Greenberg Traurig, LLP. Additional funding is provided by grants from Akron Gold Brothers, LLC, Briarwood Organization, Beechwood Organization, C.B. Richard Ellis, Cushman & Wakefield, Dime Savings Bank of Williamsburg, Hal Fettner, Durst Fettner Residential, First American Title Insurance Company of New York, Friedman, LLP, Gemini Real Estate Advisors, LLC, Jack Jaffa and Associates Real Estate Consultants, James D. Kuhn Real Estate Institute at Syracuse University, Madison Realty Capital, Massey Knackle Realty Services, Meridian Capital Group, M&T Bank, Muss Development, LLC, Des Moines Group, Newmark Knight Frank, Orphanides and Associates, SJP Properties, Sterling and Sterling, Stonehenge Partners, Urban American, W Financial Mortgage Fund, the Witkoff Group.